What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and turn the notification bell on if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. I will preface this video by saying, I'm in my new place. I don't know how great the Wi-Fi is. It doesn't seem like I will ever cut out with my voice during this thing, during recording or anything like that. However, there may be situations where the quality of the video decreases. I apologize if that happens. Nothing I can really do about that. I may switch to a different form of recording, but I got to work out the kinks in that. But overall, it shouldn't cut out any of the audio. So if the video drops to lower quality on just my face part, I apologize. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all. But just a heads up. Let's talk about something that I think is very exciting news because, I read, PFF, we all hate PFF in Baltimore, never listen to PFF, except they actually praised the Ravens. Well, sort of. They praised a player on the Ravens recently, and I believe they also heavily praised the Ravens defense recently as well, but I'll maybe talk about that in a different video. But this one says, I'm gonna read this quote. This is from Doug, I think it's Kayed, or maybe it's Keed. I'm not 100% sure on how to say it. He works for PFF, so don't really care. But he says, Bateman looked like the Ravens' best offensive player Wednesday in camp. Now, you may hear that and be like, oh my gosh, he's better than Lamar Jackson. Remember, Lamar Jackson isn't practicing, okay? There's no Lamar. But you know who was practicing on Wednesday? Who made it arguably, in the Ravens practice report, he made the best catch of the day, and that was Mark Andrews. And I think most people would look at Mark Andrews as being the top guy. I think when people look at the Ravens offense, they say, who's the best guy outside of Lamar? Obviously, outside of Lamar, you look at Mark Andrews. And they're saying Rashod Bateman played better, looked better than Mark Andrews. That is incredible. I mean, we've seen the highlights of Rashod Bateman, not just his college highlights, but any of the Ravens highlights that you see is, him just absolutely cooking any defender that lines up across from him, whether it's Marlon, whether it's, Marcus Peters, whether it's anybody that they throw on him. He is doing very, very well. And he's doing very well with, I don't want to disrespect the Ravens' current quarterback situation, but with suboptimal quarterback play, from Trace McSorley and Tyler Huntley. I like those guys, but they're backup quarterbacks. They're not Lamar Jackson. They're not as accurate as Lamar Jackson. They're not as good as Lamar Jackson. However, they're still being able to put in work because Rashod Bateman is able to get that open. And I think this is the type of thing that we're seeing that makes me very, very excited for the future of this team, because I put out videos a while ago, right after Rashod Bateman was drafted, and people were saying he's already the wide receiver one. He's already the best wide receiver on the team. He's going to be wide receiver one from day one. And I was like, no, Hollywood's wide receiver one. Watkins is probably wide receiver 2. Maybe Bateman is 3. Especially to start the year. We just don't know. We got to have to see, him in training camp. We're going to have to see him with the pads on. Well, he's put the pads on. And he is unbelievable. I mean, any time you bring up Rashod Bateman in a press conference, talking to any player, their eyes light up. They're like, oh, he's so smooth. He's so good. So crisp. Even Marlon Humphrey, when he talked about him the first time, he beat Marlon Humphrey, gave him the pat on the butt, was like, and then we see the highlight of him scoring the touchdown on Marlon Humphrey. He wipes the chest, all that stuff. Those are the types of things that we're seeing from Rashod Bateman, and he's staying on the field. And that's the other thing is I love Hollywood Brown. I'm a big believer in Hollywood Brown. However, Hollywood hamstring, when's he going to come back? We don't know. We don't have a lot of information on it. Miles Boykin, what's going on with him? James Prochet balling. Shout out James Prochet. Haven't heard a lot about Tyler Wallace. He has made some good catches. Haven't heard a ton about Devin Duvernay. Nothing negative, nothing positive. He's probably just, playing to what we would expect, a good player. But overall, Rashod Bateman is standing out. And he's standing out with the coaches. He's standing out with the other players. And that is something to look at and say, wow, this guy could have, I said that he could have a Justin Jefferson level impact. Not Justin Jefferson level statistical season, because I just don't see the Ravens passing, enough to, similar to the Vikings where they just threw the ball. I mean, it was Kirk Cousins launching the ball to Justin Jefferson all day because, they'd be down and Dalvin Cook, would sometimes get hurt and things like that. they'd start hucking it to Justin Jefferson. He'd be balling out. However, the impact that Justin Jefferson had was probably, I would say, pretty clearly the biggest impact of any rookie wide receiver last year. We'll see what he does this year, but Rashod Bateman is going to have that massive impact. If you can beat Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, you can beat anybody. Marlon Humphrey plays very, very similarly to Jalen Ramsey. That is the most comparable player to Marlon Humphrey in the NFL, a big physical corner that wants to get in your face and press you. That is Marlon. And many people would say that Jalen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the NFL. That's what most people would say. Rashod Bateman is cooking Marlon Humphrey. And yes, Marlon Humphrey was not having pads on him. I need to preface that. I made the video yesterday. People are saying like, oh, what's wrong with Marlon Humphrey? Nothing's wrong. He's not allowed to press as much. So we will see, kind of as practice goes further and further along, how he's able to perform. But so far, Rashod Bateman has been as advertised. This was why he was my number one player on my draft board for the Ravens to draft. I said I would rather have Rashod Bateman over Devontae Smith. I would rather have Rashod Bateman over Jalen Waddle. The only player wide receiver, the only offensive player I said I would rather have than Rashod Bateman was Jamar Chase. That was the only player that I said that I would rather have for the Ravens. And Jamar Chase was like a clear, easily top 7 pick in the draft. It was like, yeah, he's going to go. I thought he was clearly top 6, and he went to the Bengals at 3 or 4, wherever they picked. I can't exactly remember. But overall, Rashod Bateman has been absolutely balling, and that is not only great for this just himself and the Ravens wide receiver core, but I think it helps Greg Roman. And Des Bryant, I may talk about Des Bryant and stuff like that in another video and what he said about Greg Roman and things like that. But overall, if Greg Roman sees, if T. Martin, if Keith Williams sees a player dominating players of the caliber of Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, they have to recognize. If they don't recognize it, lost cause. And I expect T and Keith to recognize it. We'll see if Greg Roman recognizes that. Wow, that's tough to say. But if he can recognize that and be like, wow, this guy's beating kind of scrubs, kind of making them look kind of bad at some point. Obviously, they're not scrubs, and they are top tier NFL players. I need to use that in my offense. And that's when he looks at T and he looks at Keith and says, how do we get him more involved? And once we see Bateman more involved, we start to see the passing game more involved, which means more passes, which means more opportunities for Hollywood, more opportunities for Mark, more opportunities for Sammy, more opportunities for JK, for Gus, for Lamar. All these types of things are all coming from being able to show that you can beat good players. And it's going to come out. I think the first preseason game against the Saints is going to start that, well, how good are they? Obviously going against your own team in practice, but I fully expect him to be very, very good in the first preseason game against the Saints. And I will say tonight, go watch Simi Fehoko. Go watch the Hall of Fame game, Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be a lot of fun. But, just shout out to that. But football is back tonight, so I'm very excited. I cannot wait to watch that game, especially because my guy, if anybody followed me in the draft process, Simi Fehoko, I'm saying 150 yards. No, I'm just kidding. He's not going to get that. They don't play players enough to get 150. But overall, Rashod Bateman is balling, and I think it'll translate to the preseason, which will translate to the regular season, which will translate in him getting more and more time. And I think very, very quickly we could see him as the number 1 wide receiver on the depth chart. It may not be in the week 1 depth chart, but I could see week 4, week 5. You guys know that I wasn't massive on Rashod Bateman in terms of early instant impact. I was we got to see what he can do. Well, we're kind of seeing what he can do, and it's unbelievable. So absolutely keep your eyes peeled. Watch Rashod Bateman's stuff. Watch for him. I mean, I know all Ravens fans are that's the guy to watch for. But oh my goodness, he could be the second best player on the Ravens offense this year, outside of the offensive line. I'd say third best because Ronnie Stanley. But it could be better than JK, better than Marquise, better than Mark. And that's not even ridiculous to say. And I remember I thought that when I watched him at, Minnesota, watching all that film and doing all that scouting on him. And I was like, this guy is good. And he is proving that he is as good as advertised. And that's amazing to see. Everybody, comment your thoughts and opinions on Rashod Bateman down below. If you're at practice or like you've seen him in person, please let me know. I'm very excited to see that. The background will get cleaned up very, very soon. My sister moves out tomorrow morning. However, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it live with the viewers on Sunday. I'm going to a funeral, but I will be back in time for a we may be able to do a live with the viewers on Tuesday, but then for all preseason games and all games in the NFL season, the goal is to stream 1 hour before the games and 1 hour after the games. So, we get the pregame predictions, pregame discussions, pregame questions and answers, and then the post-game questions and answers. We can celebrate the victories, figure out what went wrong in the losses. Should be a lot of fun. So that'll start in preseason. So, before the Saints game, make sure to come into the stream, ask any questions you have, any players to look out for. And all that stuff, and I'll know a lot about the Saints, and I've researched a ton about the Saints already. But thank you everybody for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I will see all of you again tomorrow.